Fire Emblem Engage Warrior tier list. Let's go. let's be a Mario and let's just jump into it. All right, so Alear. All right, so before I begin, Warrior is one of those classes that does a lot. It gives you speed growth, it gives you some dex, it gives you strength and HP as well as some build. It generally will improve speed and strength at a good rate. So if a unit has good strength or good speed, it can kind of help push them over the edge. You also have to keep in mind that Warrior is an axe bow class. So some units have low builds that can kind of hurt them. Other units that have high build or high build growth can benefit from it. So, all right, so now that we know that those are its base growths, Alear has pretty high speed and 5% build. Warrior puts Alear at 10. Warrior also improves build when you switch into it, and it also scales strength. So on Warrior, Alear would be 65% speed, 10% build growth, and 55% strength. I would say Alear would be like an A tier, maybe a B tier Warrior. Probably like A tier. Vander, he's going to have a hard time just because of how he functions. In terms of his growths, he has 25% strength and 35% speed. So his growths wouldn't be terrible on Warrior, but he's not going to have like crazy strength, and his speed is just going to be decent. But he has the problem of leveling up really slow with his high internal level, and that just hurts him in terms of unit viability. Now, Clan on Warrior actually would be pretty solid, and I think that's actually what people usually run him on. So if you could get him into it, he would be good. He's actually very similar to Alear. Maybe he's like B tier, but like he has 50% speed, 5% build, and 35% strength. He's kind of like mistyped like Anna. He's on the wrong class. Him and Anna need to change starting classes because for whatever reason he's on magic, but his magic growth is bad, and she's on physical, and her physical growth is just whatever. But he's similar. He's definitely worse than Alear because he has worse growths, and there's more to get him into this. But his strength would be 55%, his speed would be 65%. So he would be a solid Warrior. He would actually be able to double potentially. Maybe he's in B tier just because of the level of investment to get him up and running. All right, now Framm. This one's actually kind of interesting. She has no build growth, so she'd just get 5% from Warrior. Her build stat is low. I think Warrior would put her at like 8 or 9 build. But she could potentially wield light axes, so she could do like Well Axe, the DLC Well Axe, and that has low weight. So she could use that, and her growths on Warrior, she'd be 70% speed and 50% strength, and 75% HP. So she'd be kind of like a bruiser. She'd actually be pretty solid, and she levels up pretty effortlessly, unlike this dude who takes away XP from other units, because she just levels up from, chain guarding and using staves. So she would actually be a really good Warrior, funny enough. Alfred. Now, Alfred, arguably, he's not like one of the best units to invest in, but he has like a similar issue where the early game units are fighting for XP, and they're fighting for XP because they want to power level as much as humanly possible so that when you get to mid-game, they're relevant and viable. So investing in Alfred, honestly, just looking at his bases, like his growth rates and his bases, like he would be okay at this. He's not going to be a rock star. He would be 55% speed and 60% strength growth on Warrior. He would just be decent. He would just be like a serviceable Warrior. Etie. Now, some people really overhype how good Etie is. She has the exact same growth rate and strength as Alfred. So she doesn't even have the highest growth rate. But some Etie stands really overhype her. I think she's like a C tier on Warrior. It's true that most units on Warrior with enough investment can one round, but that's not the unit being good. That's just Warrior being good. So she, like, compared to Alfred, she just has 10% less dex, 5% less speed, 15% less defense growth. She even has half of his build growth, and she has 20% less HP growth. So on fixed growth mode, he just would outclass her in every way, and he has better bases starting out, and he's easier to use than her. So he's just a better Warrior. For Boucheron, Boucheron's a weird unit in that he is super high build, and he's fast, but his strength growth is like low for an axe user. It's 20%. So Boucheron, he hits 100% health growth on Warrior. he hits 40% strength growth, which is kind of unimpressive because warrior gives you 20% boost. But his dex would be 60%, his speed would be 60%, his defense would be decent, his res would be decent, his build would be 25% growth. So he'd be he'd be a very fast warrior that could use heavy weapons without any build downside. But the problem with him is that his strength isn't going to be as high as other units. Now 2 points of strength, because generally it's like 2 points of strength per 10 level ups. So if he levels up 20 to 30 times, that's plus 4 to 6 extra damage he's not dealing. He would still be decent on this, though. I would say he's still like a B tier. I would say he's better than Etie because he has more bulk. He has more health, so he's more durable. He has more speed, so he doesn't get doubled. And he has high build, so he can use heavier weapons without it impeding his speed. So he could potentially consistently just shoot down flyers and occasionally go for axe kills. But he would be a decent warrior. Saline. Now, Saline has low build, but she could run the well axe, so that's just like the consideration. She would be at 55% strength and 60% speed, which is pretty good. Her bases are okay. She kind of wants to be like a magic class or a hybrid or something. So, but she's not bad though. Like, she's definitely not bad. She's more, I would say she's like B tier. She's like more combat oriented early on, so like investing in her doesn't feel bad, and she's basically like a clan that's better early on, but he has better physical stats if you switch him over. Maybe I move him down like this because of the investment, because it takes him a lot to get started, right? Chloe on warrior, so we're getting into weird territory. Well, like I don't recommend putting her on warrior. You could 45% strength, 70% speed growth, 10% build. She has, I think, like 1 or 2 extra points of build at base, so she could reliably double. She would be at 95% HP growth on warrior. I would say she's like an A tier on this, just because she's very fast. She has very good bases and a fantastic early and middle game. And if you were to master seal and second seal her on the warrior versus these other units, she would pop off faster, because she can set up kills. She can one round a lot of things early on pretty easily. All right, Louis. So Louis, he would never be fast enough. He has high build, so he would be like a one-shot archetype. He does have 50% defense growth, so it does make him tanky, but his speed would make him... his low speed would put him in doubling thresholds. This is for no DLC, by the way. I will evaluate the DLC units, though, as well. So... I would say he's like here, maybe here. He's going to be slow, but he could hit hard, and that'd be it. That's really it. There's really nothing else to evaluate. Yunaka. So she actually has 35% strength growth, so that's 55 on warrior, and then 60% speed on warrior, and then 10% build growth. I think she would be like here. She would be like around, maybe she's better than Saline. She'd be like here. She might be better than these two. Yeah, because her early game is better than those, so I think like high B tier is fair. All right, Alcryst. So he would be 50% strength and then 60% speed. He has 10% build growth, and I think he has like +3 starting build. So he actually might be like low A tier as a warrior. It gets his HP to 85% growth, which is almost a point every level up on fixed growth. So that's really good. The strength is there, the speed is there, the base build is there, and the build growth is there, 15% on warrior. So he actually would be a very solid warrior, to be honest. So definitely better than Etie. All right, Citrine. She has very low strength growth and she has very low speed. So she would be bad. I wouldn't recommend it. Lapis. 25% strength base, 55% speed. So you're looking at 45% strength growth and 70% speed growth, 45% dex growth, 10% build. She has low starting build. I think she would be like here. Maybe here. No, I think better than Alfred, because she starts off fast, unlike any of these, and he has to build his speed up. So I think she'd be like high B tier. She also has a thing that increases her hit rate, which is nice, because some of these have like meh accuracy, and that's a problem on axes, because axes are inaccurate. Diamant. So he is very inaccurate. He does have some speed to him. He has some strength to him. I would say he's like mid B tier. Maybe like there. Like above these. So he would have 20% build growth, which means 2 points of build every 10 level ups on fixed, which is actually a lot of build. He also has, I think, like 8 or 9 starting build, so he would have good build at base. So he could easily use things like Tomahawk. His speed would be 55% growth, which is solid, and his strength would be 50%. His dex would only be 30% though, so you'd have to run accuracy engravings on his weapons, or like hit plus 30 or something to get his hit up, because he's going to be missing quite a bit. Now, if you get Fair Fight to trigger, that can help, but even with Fair Fight, he still has kind of poor accuracy. Amber's interesting because he has very high strength growth of 45%. His dex is kind of low, but he does have a passive that can also increase his hit rate. His speed would be 45%. His strength would be 65%. So he would probably want to optimize more for just hitting hard once or critting. But I think he would be like an okay warrior. He would be like B tier. He's not fast enough to double, and doubling matters because everyone can't run crit build. even with DLC, like everyone can't be on Wrath Vantage holdouts. You can have at most maybe 3 of those. So you could potentially run a lot of them, because you could have a Roy, you could have an Ike, and then you could have a Leaf, and then you'd have to inherit the passives that you're missing. But even so, especially on base game, there's not that many good crit engravings. There's like 1 or 2 good crit engravings, and the other ones are kind of questionable. And even then, it's debatable how good the build is, because 2 and 3 range enemies exist, and they'll just poke holes in that build. So, you know. All right, Jade. So Jade, she's kind of like a generalist in terms of growths. She doesn't really stand out in anything. She would be 55% strength and 45% speed on a warrior with 15% build growth, 45% dex. Her bases are decent, from what I understand. They're not like great. They're just like, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put her in like with Louis. I think they're pretty similar. I think the performance would be similar. Ivy. So Ivy does have 40% speed, 25% strength. You'd be throwing out Lindworm, so that's kind of a problem. She does have 10% build and a decent starting build, like a build modifier of like plus 2 to 3, I believe. So she has some build to work with. She would be 55% speed, 45% strength, with a starting strength that's probably not that high. So maybe she would also be C tier on a warrior. Probably better than Etie though, because she just has better bases and higher build. Kagetsu on warrior would easily be S tier. I don't even have to evaluate this. Kagetsu has 50% dex, speed, 40% defense, 40% luck, 10% build, 30% strength growth, putting him at 50. He'd be 65% speed. He has really good bases and really high strength and build already, so he'd be able to use like every weapon and just completely destroy. Zelkov, he does have decent strength, 35%, decent speed, 35%. So, well, maybe like below average speed. 10% build. He has high build modifier. I would say he's like a lot of B tiers, but he'd be like here, I think, on warrior. Next, we have Fagato. Fagato is very fast, and he has high build. Honestly, I think you could argue he's an S tier. He'd be 15% build, which is substantial, because that's 3 points for 20 level ups. He'd be 70% speed. He has good bases, too. Let me check out his bases. Yeah, he has 8 build on Sentinel, so he'd have higher base build. He does have 12 strength on Sentinel, but that's a basic class if you advance him into the next class. He's either S or A tier. Maybe I'll bump him down to like A. Maybe like high A tier. Maybe around Alear level. I think that's fair because they're similar growths. He does have more build, but depending on the build or on the actual loadout, like the weapons you're using, it might not matter. Pandreo actually has very low strength, so I'm going to put him in C tier. Maybe even D tier. He has 5% strength growth. That's terrible. He would be 25% strength growth. It's probably better than Vander, though, because Pandreo is still a solid unit. He could use, like, Hurricane Axe, but that's, like, one of those weird things. Actually, he could use Hurricane Axe and Radiant Bow. It's not. The thing is, though, even at he just has 30% magic growth. Honestly, I still think it would be like D tier. Like, even with Hurricane Axe and Radiant Bow, like, Hurricane Axe is questionable. It's not that good of a weapon, in my opinion. And Radiant Bow can be good on certain classes, but it's on a, like, Warrior is low base magic, and 30% magic growth isn't exactly very high, so he's not going to be popping off. Bune, 30% strength, 35% speed, 10% build. He would be like a decent one. He would be like low B tier, I think, because he at least hits 50% speed growth and 50% strength, which is decent, but he would have to level up in order to get his stats to a point where he could double, and you'd have to do some serious speed fixing because he does have low base speed. Tamara, so she's another unit with 10% build. She has decent defense, speed, dex, good strength. Well, it's like below average, so 25%. So you're looking at 45% strength, 65 or 60% speed growth, 15% build. It kind of feels like B tier to me, like somewhere probably better than these. Yeah, like here. Panette, probably better than Kaziatsu, actually. So Panette, she has really high strength and really high strength growth, and this allows her to hit like a truck and run a bunch of different builds on Warrior. Warrior is basically the class she wants to go to, just because of the fact that her base strength and strength growth are so high. She's tied with Rosado and Amber for highest strength growth of 45%, and she also has pretty high base strength, so she can hit really hard. She can run Brave Axe, she can run Tomahawk, the one-shot thing, she can run Killer Axe, she can run Killer Bow. There's a lot of things she can do on Warrior that she uniquely can do because of her high strength. Okay, Merrin. So how good would Merrin be? So she's fast, and she has some build, and she has okay base strength. It's not the best, and her strength growth is only 25%. So it's going to be another one of those like 45% strength growth, 65% speed, and then 15% build units, which is pretty solid. You could argue she could be an A tier or B tier. It's kind of similar to Tamara, though, so I'll put her like here. I think that's fair, because like axes aren't going to be the best thing for her. On other classes, I'd say she's much better, but on this class, I feel like she wouldn't be as good. Hortensia. So Hortensia has some problems. She has low max HP, which means that if she gets hit, she'll die pretty easily. She has low build, which is also a problem. And for growth rates, so we have, okay, so she has 20% strength and magic. She's 50% speed. So she has speed. She has 0% build, though. I'm going to say she's like C tier. She's probably worse than Etie, actually. So maybe she's even D tier. Because at least like these have build to some, or build that says strength. So like there's something, but she has like nothing going on that would be good. All right, for Sadal, he does have decent speed. He has some strength, and he has some build. And for his bases, he has, I think, a little bit of everything. He has some strength. Now, this is on Dancer, which has low strength. He has some speed. He has some build. So he would have, like, okay, I would say he's, like, here. Now, obviously, switching him off your Dancer to make him a Warrior is completely a terrible idea. But if you actually ran him as a Warrior, he'd be, like, okay at it. Next, we have Rosado. So Rosado actually has good starting speed and okay starting strength. It's not the best, but Warrior would improve it. He starts out on Wyvern. He does have 45% speed, 40% dex, and 45% strength. He only has 5% build, but his base build, okay, so it's 8. So I think he would be at like 9 build. So you'd be 10% build growth. You do have really big damage. You'd be 65% strength growth and 60% speed. So he has some potential to be, I would say he has some potential to be like an A tier Warrior. I think he would be decent at it. Goldmary. So Goldmary has some issues with like speed, but they can be fixed to some degree. Her speed growth is only 25%, so she'd be 40% and then 50% strength, 10% build. Her base stats are actually pretty good though. She has a base strength of 17 on Hero and a base speed of 20 on Hero. I don't know if Warrior or Hero is faster, but it's probably plus or minus 1 or 2 speed, so you're not going to be really missing that much. Her build is 9 on hero, so it'd probably be like 10 to 12 on warrior. So you have decent base stats, some decent speed. The problem is like scaling, so you need speed fixing, but I think she would be like an A tier on this. I think it makes a lot of sense to some degree. Next we have Lyndon, everyone's favorite old man. His bases, he actually has pretty high build for some reason. He's 10 build on Sage. His speed is 19 on Sage. So you're looking at okay starting speed, okay starting build. He would probably be like high B or low A, just based on his starting stats. He also has pretty high health. He has 38 starting health on Sage, which means if you switch him into Warrior, his base health will be much higher. His growths, though, 25% strength, 40% speed, 10% build. So he has build already fixed for him because of his high base build plus his build growth. He has good enough speed. He'd be 55% speed growth. And he has good strength. He'd be 45% strength. I think he would be like high B or low A. Maybe like low A is fine. As weird as this looks. All right, and then we have a character who already is on Warrior, Saphir. So Saphir, 45% speed. She has 55% strength growth. Her starting stats, 25 or 24 strength, 15 build, which is actually pretty good. So if you, and then also 19 speed. So if you fix her speed, she could double with a tomahawk, which is interesting. I would say she's like, maybe she's here. She might, some people might argue she's like S. She's around, maybe she's better than Fagato, it depends. He's faster, she could do more because of her high strength, so I guess it depends on how you want to run them. I think that's like reasonable. Vale, so Vale has low build. I already know that, like going into this. She has 0% build growth. She's also slow, so she's 30% speed and 25% strength. I'm going to say she's like here, maybe here. She's going to be pretty bad at this. Mauvier, he has really high build growth. He has good strength growth, and he has good speed growth. He's probably like an A. Probably like here, maybe even higher. He's somewhere up there. His bases are decent too. His base strength on Royal Knight is 21. His base speed on Royal Knight is 22. His build on Royal Knight is 12. Royal Knight has less build, probably more speed, and less strength than Warrior. So you'd be looking at a strength increase. He also has a high max HP. He has high starting HP of 51 on Royal Knight. So you're looking at an HP, a strength, and a build increase from switching into Warrior. And then on top of pretty good growth rates, you know, you'd be looking at 55% strength growth and then 50% speed with 20% build growth. And he also has a base of 50 defense growth and 45 res growth. So he's very tanky. And 70% HP, putting him, you know, Warrior's modifier of plus 25% would put him at 95%. If I said it was 20 earlier, that was a mistake. It's 25%. Anna. So Anna has 50% magic, dex, and speed growth, but only 15% strength. So in terms of speed, she'd be there. Her build is kind of lower, so she would have low build. She would be like a B tier. She'd be worse than Clan, I think. And this is with like factoring in the investment. I don't think she'd be very good on this. Jean, on the other hand, he would actually be a really good warrior. He like potentially he could even be S tier. So let me explain why. So the way Jean works. So here are his bases, right? So let's start here. 50% HP, 20% strength and magic, 40% speed, 35% dex, 5% build, and then, you know, whatever else, it doesn't matter. All right, so when his passive works like this, it doubles the class growth rates. So the class growth rates of Warrior, you know, 25% HP becomes 50%, 20% strength becomes 40%, 10% dex increase becomes 20%, 15% speed increase becomes 30%, and so on. So his actual growth rates would be very high on this class. So let's add those up really quickly. So let me find it again. Here we go, Warrior. Okay, so on Jean, you are looking at, for health, 100% health growth, 60% strength growth. The magic doesn't matter. For dex, 55% dex growth. On speed, 70% speed growth. On defense, 45%. The res would be 30%. and the build would be 15. So that's pretty solid. Guaranteed health point, very high speed, very high strength. Now you'd have to get him on this early and it would require a lot of investment. So you could argue he's A tier, but he could be an S tier with the right setup, right? I don't think clan, like you could argue clan moves up. Maybe let's put him in A, like high A, assuming that the investment is moving him down. Same thing with clan. Otherwise, you can move them both up a tier, I would say. All right, next, I have to zoom out. I guess we'll do the DLC ones just for fun. So we have Nell. So Nell has good speed. She has good strength growth. She has good build. She has good starting build. I would say she's an easy A. Probably like there. Rafal, he has 40% strength, 35% speed, 10% build. His bases, he has pretty good starting strength, pretty okay speed, decent build, like 9 build. He would probably be an A tier as well. Let's say that's like similar, like very similar. Zelestia, so she has pretty good bases, pretty good build. She also has pretty high speed and pretty good. She has very impressive growth, actually. 35% in magic and strength. That's pretty crazy. Plus 50% speed. Only 5% build, but her starting build is enough that she could use like Tomahawk, Silver Axe with certain engravings, or even just the Well Axe, and she'd be okay. So on Warrior, I would say she's probably high A tier. I don't want to put her in S. I think she's like top of A tier. Gregory on Warrior, surprisingly, he has 30% strength growth for no reason. I don't know why that is. He's a sage, but he has pretty high strength growth, pretty low dex, really high magic growth, but pretty low speed, 25% speed. His starting build is 8 on Sage, which is decent. That means like 10 to 11 on Warrior. So his starting build is good, but his speed would be 40%. His starting speed would be quite low. His dex is low. Honestly, he has a lot working against him. I'd put him in like low C tier. He just has too much working against him. You'd have to fix his hit rate. You'd have to fix his speed. He's not durable enough to tank things. His starting health is like about average, so he's not like exceptionally durable or anything. Madeline, she's 50% strength growth, but 15% dex and speed. So you're losing a lot. She's also very tanky in a way. She's like high defense and high defense growth. On General, her build is high, but General always has high build, so you'd actually be losing build. Her strength is 24 in General. General has lower strength than Warrior, so you'd be gaining some strength. She has potential, but her hit rates and speed are bad. She's tanky, but she's not fast. So it would take a lot of work to some degree. I think she'd be like a B, like somewhere like here. All right, so let's zoom out because this is now. I'll just get rid of this row. All right, so here is the list. Let's make sure we didn't miss anyone. I'll put Cool Mauvier down there just as a joke. Some people always like saw me in S tier, but honestly, I have to put him in C. Sorry, guys. I know you want him to be in S tier, but I just don't think he's that good of a warrior. But here's the list for warrior. I think these are like the best warriors. As for other ones, there's a lot of ones you could argue could move into S or move into A. I don't really think there's too many like top tier warriors in the game. I really think Panette is just like the best warrior, and then Kagetsu is just like a really solid warrior. Kagetsu is good because he has speed, strength, and build. That's why he's good. If he didn't have the build, he would be similar. He would just be an A tier. But because he has the build and he has the high base strength, his base strength is really one of the things that makes him so good. If they just reduced his base strength, he would just be an okay unit. His base strength is 17 on Swordmaster, which has low strength. And his base speed and dex are very high, and his base build is very high. So he has a mixture of, his growths are very comparable to other units, but his bases are what makes him so good, because you get all these crazy stats for free, and then if you just start investing in him, he just starts popping off. So that's really why he's that good. But outside of that, that's pretty much it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoy these. Feel free to post a comment as to where you agree or disagree, and I'll see you next one.